What if everything you've been taught about manifesting is turned inside out? What if the real work isn't trying to cram belief into your mind, but learning how to let go, how to forget the patterns that keep replaying? Unlocking quantum manifestation, forget what you think you know, begins there. Not with louder affirmations, but with quieter unburdening. Think about the last affirmation you repeated. Did your chest soften when you said it? Or did something in you tense, like an automatic reflex, saying, "Not yet"? Most people live with a split, conscious intention on one side and an embodied memory on the other. The coaching books tell you to construct stronger mental images, to convince your mind of a new future. That advice can help, but only up to a point. What usually blocks the emergence of the life you want is not a lack of belief. It's the weight of a body that already remembers what it thinks is true. Here's a simple invitation. If you're ready to release something your body no longer needs, type in the comments now, "I release what my body no longer needs." It's a small ritual of commitment. No performance, no judgment, just a gesture that says you're willing to practice a different kind of work. Most manifestation practices focus on persuasion. Convince the universe, persuade your mind, affirm until the doubt goes away. But persuasion tries to override a system that stores feeling as default. The nervous system, your body chemistry, and the habitual ways attention settles, those are the real transmitters of your frequency. You can recite a truth in the mind, but if the shoulders remain braced, the breath shallow, the belly tight, your embodied signal contradicts the words. The result is internal static, many competing messages, and the field, understood here as a metaphorical reading of your state, hears the stronger, more consistent signal. When I say field, I'm borrowing a metaphor from quantum physics to describe a kind of sensitivity. Systems respond to consistent patterns. Use this only as a heuristic, as a poetic model, not as a literal physics claim. The point is practical. What you emit consistently, your posture, your breath, your automatic reactions, carries far more weight than a once-off thought. The field, as a metaphor, reads frequency and coherence more than isolated conviction. So what creates coherence? Not more effort, but less noise. Imagine a radio turned between stations. When multiple stations bleed into one another, you hear hiss. Turn the tuner slowly, remove the static, and one station comes through clearly. Manifestation in this framing needs a clear channel. The way to clear it is not to crank the volume of belief, it's to reduce internal interference. That's where forgetting comes in. Not wiping memories, but diminishing their emotional charge so they no longer hijack the present. Let me explain how this shows up in your body. From neuroscience, we get a useful model. The brain is a prediction engine. It takes past inputs, builds expectations, and constantly tests those expectations against incoming data. If your history is patterned by scarcity, loneliness, or being overlooked, your brain, in service of safety, will reliably scan for signs that it's still true. Your nervous system learns a way of being. Shoulder tension becomes shorthand for prepare for threat. A sensation in the stomach signals not safe. These are not moral failings, they are adaptations that once helped you survive. But adaptations become filters when kept longer than their usefulness. Those somatic signatures, tight jaw, shallow breath, clenched pelvic floor, rapid heart in certain contexts, are circuits. They're neural pathways strengthened by repetition. Each time the loop runs, it becomes easier to run again. So when you try to manifest with bright mental imagery, those old loops whisper a counterstory. We already know this won't work. The embodied memory broadcasts louder because it has been rehearsed for years. The remedy is not insisting more loudly in thought. It's choosing, over and over, small somatic acts that interrupt the loop. This is what I call selective forgetting. It sounds paradoxical. How do we forget what's still there? The key is in language. Forget as unburdening, not erasure. You do not delete the factual memory. You soften its charge. You reduce its urgency. You allow it to become information instead of a command center. In practice, selective forgetting is a set of micro-habits that change how the nervous system predicts, little by little, until the old reflexes lose their primacy. Selective forgetting operates on three accessible levers: awareness, corrective micro-choices, and repetition. Awareness is the noticing. Catch the old reaction before you are fused to it. Corrective micro-choices are tiny oppositional acts, a breath, a shifting of the shoulders, naming the sensation, that say to your system, we can respond differently. Repetition is time. You won't overwrite a decade in a day, but many small, consistent choices rewire the tendency. Let me give you an example you might recognize. You get the call about an opportunity, a new job, a relationship opening. Your inner coach fires up a visualization. You're calm, capable, radiant. You rehearse the success. Yet, when you enter the conversation, you tighten. The chest constricts, your voice sits somewhere low and cautious, and you notice the old story whispering, "Don't get your hopes up." What happened? Your visualization engaged cognition, but your body's pattern, scarred by past disappointments or criticism, took the lead. The signal to the field became mixed. I'm safe and I'm not safe at once. The result is fuzzy manifestation. Now imagine a different microhabit. Before the call, you spend 30 seconds lengthening the exhale, feeling the softening between your shoulder blades, and place attention in the area between your ribs where a tense knot lives. You do a soft sigh, a release that feels small and possible. You name the tightness out loud. I'm noticing fear. You let the voice be kind. You don't obliterate the memory. You reduce its command. Entering the call, your breath cycles differently. You might still feel nervous, but the nervousness no longer hijacks the entire system. The embodied frequency is cleaner. It's not a guarantee of the external outcome. It's a recalibration of what you send out. Here's a practical way to begin this work now. We'll do a micro practice, short, safe, and simple. You can do it sitting or standing. Pause. Place one hand on your lower rib cage, the other on your belly. Take an in-breath for 4 counts. Pause for a second at the top, then exhale for 6 counts. As you exhale, intentionally soften the space beneath your hands. No big drama, just a notice of ease. Repeat this breath pattern for 4 cycles. As you breathe, name one small memory or feeling that lives in your body when you think about what you want. Perhaps a doubt or an old no. Say, gently, I notice this. Then add, not now. That second phrase is a small act of selective forgetting. You're not erasing the memory. You're declaring it can step aside for the present moment. Breathe, soften, and return to activity. If that landed, do it again when you sense the old reflex. The power here is repetition. Each time you choose a different microaction, the neural circuits that relied on the old habit are nudged. Over weeks, months, those nudges accumulate. Let's map what's happening physiologically in a cautious way. Research suggests that safety cues reduce amygdala reactivity and shift autonomic states toward parasympathetic regulation. In plain language, when your body senses safety through breath, posture, and attention, the threat response relaxes, creating space for different responses. This is not therapy for deep trauma. If memories are raw or overwhelming, seek trained support. But for ordinary, everyday reactivity, small loops that replay scarcity thinking, your capacity to signal safety to your own system is remarkably potent. Another micro-practice, slightly longer, but still under a minute, is a presence anchor. Stand or sit and let your feet feel heavy against the ground. Notice 3 textures: the fabric against your skin, the temperature of the air on your face, the contact of your tongue behind your teeth. Name them silently. Then breathe with a count of in 3, out 5. With each exhale, imagine a whisper of release from wherever you feel tension. After 4 cycles, bring to mind a desire you've been trying to attract. Hold it gently, like a bird in your hands, alive, wanting to fly. Notice whether your chest opens slightly or whether something braces. If the latter, return to the breath, soften, and let the image sit without forcing.
This tiny practice trains you to hold intention without aggression.
These practices work because they alter the relative weighting between cognition and sensation. The body is the long-term storehouse of your lived reality. When you forget in the selective way I'm inviting, you're teaching the body to treat old signals as background noise rather than frontline commanders. Over time, the coherence of your state increases, and coherence is what the metaphorical field registers. Sometimes people ask, is this all imagination? Are we just making ourselves comfortable with fantasy? There's a real humility required here. Manifestation in this teaching is not about manufacturing outcomes like magic. It's about aligning your inner environment to allow your inner environment to allow your choices, opportunities, and discernment to show up with clarity. That clarity increases the likelihood of perceiving, recognizing, and acting on possibilities. You still have to take aligned action in the world. The work of selective forgetting simply changes the conditions under which action flows. I want to offer a vignette that captures how subtle this can be. A friend of mine, call her Mira, had practiced affirmations for years around financial stability. She believed it in thought, but as invoices appeared overdue, she felt an old knot tighten near the solar plexus. Every email from an unknown number triggered that same contraction. She would visualize abundance before earnings calls, but the tension returned the moment she stepped into negotiation. Then she began a different experiment. Instead of longer visualization sessions, she instituted small embodied pauses. Before opening emails, she would rest her palms on her legs, exhale long, and say, "This does not have to be urgent right now." When meeting a client, she would take one deliberate breath, soften her shoulders, and keep her gaze steady for a beat longer than usual. She kept a journal of sensations, not outcomes. After months of these choices, her pattern changed. Not because of a single revelation, but because the body stored fewer alarms. She found she recognized opportunities she'd previously missed and showed up in negotiations with steadier energy. The outcome wasn't miraculous. It was incremental and steady, and it changed how possibilities unfolded. That example underscores an important boundary. This is not about quick fixes. The nervous system needs time and repeat practice to update. Selective forgetting is not denial. It is a reordering of priority. You still hold the facts of your past. You simply reduce their power to dictate your present. Another boundary to be clear about: this practice is not a substitute for professional mental health care. If memories or patterns are linked to trauma that interferes with daily functioning, please seek support from qualified clinicians. Selective forgetting is a self-regulation tool suitable for ordinary reactivity and long-standing habits, not a replacement for therapy where it's needed.
Now, let me offer a simple, practical sequence you can integrate into your week. Think of it as a daily maintenance practice for clearing the channel. 1. Morning reset, 2 to 3 minutes. Upon waking, place attention in the body. Take 3 slow, extended exhales. Name one small fear or tension silently. I'm noticing. Add a gentle directive. I will choose a different response when this shows up. This primes the nervous system before the day's demands. 2. Midday micro reset, 60 seconds. Pause near lunch. Ground your feet. Breathe with a lengthened exhale and scan for one tight spot. Offer a small corrective motion. Roll your shoulders, release the jaw, and say, "Not now." Return to task. 3. Pre-intention ritual, 30 to 90 seconds. Before any conversation where you need to be coherent, presentations, meetings, dates, place your hands on the lower ribs. Breathe in for 4 counts and out for 6, and visualize a single, clear image of your next best step. Keep the image small and sensory. The ritual primes the body to send a consistent message. 4. Evening integration, 3 to 5 minutes. Journal sensations rather than outcomes. Write what felt different in your body today and what micro-choice you made. This builds narrative of change that supports neural updating. These are not commandments. They are invitations. If you do one of these consistently, you will start to notice shifts. If you do none, you will likely continue to experience the same internal noise. Throughout this teaching, I keep returning to two words: coherence and emptiness. Emptiness here isn't lack, it's a creative openness. When you create inner space, by softening a charge, releasing an automatic stance, you leave room for new possibilities to occupy. Coherence is the quality that allows one possibility to be perceived clearly among many potentials. It's tempting to ask for a checklist of how long before change appears. I'm going to be honest, it varies. Some people notice small shifts in weeks. For many, it's months. The variable is the history and the degree of repetition of the old circuits. What is reliable is the directionality. Repeated micro-choices that privilege ease and inquisitive attention reduce the power of old reflexes. Before we continue, a brief caveat on language. I've used quantum as a metaphor to illustrate the sensitivity of systems to coherent signals. This is a useful heuristic, not a scientific endorsement that quantum mechanics directly explains personal outcomes. When you hear the field in this narrative, think of it as a metaphor for responsiveness. How systems, including social and interpersonal dynamics, respond to clarity and habit. Keep curiosity alive, but also keep discernment. You might be wondering how to keep momentum when the old reflexes push back. There are two practical attitudes that help. First, curiosity. When the body reacts, ask, with kindness, what does this sensation want me to know?
Curiosity dilutes judgment, and judgment often tightens circuits. Second, incrementalism. Resist the pressure to overhaul everything at once. The nervous system prefers micro-updates. Choose one ritual and do it daily for 30 days before adding another. Here is another guided practice you can try now, especially if you're watching this on a walk or standing in a kitchen. It takes about a minute. Stand with your feet hip-width apart. Gently soften your knees. Inhale and lift your ribs slightly. Exhale and feel a gentle drop in the lower belly. Place attention on the area between the heart and the belly, the place where many people carry the sense of urgency. Inhale for a count of 3. Exhale for a count of 5. As you exhale, imagine the pressure easing by the tiniest degree, like a window cracked open. On the third round, say silently, "I am not required to solve this now." Notice the felt shift. Carry that note into the next thing. If you can practice that before a meeting, before a difficult conversation, or before checking messages, it will recalibrate how you show up. Again, not a guarantee, but a better probability that your frequency will be less noisy. Let's return briefly to the concept of signal coherence. Think of a single candle in a dark room versus thousands of tiny flickering candles. Which one do you notice more? The single steady candle. Coherence is steadiness, consistent posture, steady breath, unambivalent attention. When your inner environment is coherent, you're easier to read. Opportunities, relationships, decisions find you more readily because you aren't broadcasting contradictory directives. There is an emergent identity that comes from this work. It is not a performative I am whole pose. It is quieter, a sense of being able to hold desire and still be present to reality, a steadier nervous system that allows for intuition, a willingness to act without desperation. People who cultivate this way of being report a change in how decisions present themselves. The options feel less frantic, more aligned. They still do the work. They still meet setbacks. But the setbacks are less like cataclysmic proof of I'm not enough, and more like feedback to adjust course. Now, before we close, remember the boundaries. If any memory or sensation you encounter feels overwhelming, if it impedes your functioning or causes distress that won't ease with self-regulation, please reach out to a mental health professional. Selective forgetting is a self-care tool, not a therapeutic replacement. If you've been following along and feel called to go deeper with structured practices, frameworks, and guided sequences that expand on what we touched on today, I've created a companion resource called Awaken Your Quantum Power. It's an ebook and companion practice pathway that lays out progressive embodied exercises, reflective prompts, and safe micro-rituals to strengthen the kind of coherence we discussed. If you're interested, you'll find a link in the pinned comment and description. No pressure, only an invitation for those who want a guided path. To close, forget what you think you know about manifesting as sheer belief. The mastery lies in learning how to make your internal environment hospitable to new possibilities. Forgetting, in the sense we've used today, is learning to unburden the body, to dissolve the emotional charge that keeps replaying old scripts, and to send a clear, coherent signal. That clarity makes you easy to notice, not because you're louder, but because you are less crowded inside. Take one breath with me now. Slow in for 4, pause, long out for 6. As you exhale, let a single intention sit in your chest. I will choose small actions today that create space. When you're ready, return your attention to the day. If you typed, "I release what my body no longer needs" earlier, thank you for that step. If you're curious about continuing, find Awaken Your Quantum Power in the pinned comment or description for a deeper curriculum of embodied practices. And remember the promise at the heart of this message. Unlocking quantum manifestation begins by forgetting what you think you know, by clearing your channel, softening old charges, and letting possibility find you in the quiet that's left. Go gently, keep practicing. The world responds to coherence.